The Grand Hanwhat Hotel ballroom gleamed under crystal chandeliers, Seoul's elite gathered in whispered luxury. Then she spoke. "I'm pregnant for your husband." The mistress's voice cut through champagne laughter. "He's mine now." 500 guests turned. Cameras captured everything. Amora Okoye stood motionless. Her burgundy gown pooled like spilled wine around her feet. Her fingers remained loose around her clutch. Her expression, nothing. Absolutely nothing. The room expected screaming. Tears. Violence. They received silence. And somehow, that silence spread like poison through the air. The mistress's triumphant smile flickered. Kang Tae-hyun's jaw tightened, the dragon tattoo on his neck pulsing with his heartbeat. Amora's eyes met no one's. She simply turned and walked away. The clicking of her heels echoed like a countdown. Sometimes, the most dangerous women are not those who scream, but those who say nothing at all. Because silence from a woman who has every right to rage, that is not weakness. That is warning. Please like, share, and subscribe. The elevator doors closed behind Amora with a soft whisper. Inside, she pressed her back against the cold metal wall. Her reflection stared back, composed, elegant, untouched by the chaos she'd left behind. Her hands weren't shaking. They should have been. Pregnant. The word echoed in her mind like a death knell. She had suspected. For weeks, she had noticed the way Kang Tae-hyun's phone buzzed at odd hours. The subtle shift in his cologne when he returned late. The way his cold eyes sometimes held something she couldn't name, guilt, perhaps, or merely inconvenience. But hearing it spoken aloud, in that room, before everyone who had ever envied her position as the wife of Korea's most powerful man. The elevator chimed. Penthouse level. Amora stepped out into the private hallway, her heels silent now against the marble. The presidential suite waited at the end, purchased specifically for tonight's gala. A symbol of Kang Tae-hyun's dominance over Seoul's business world. Now it felt like a gilded cage. She entered without turning on the lights. The floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Seoul's glittering skyline. Amora stood before them, her reflection ghostly against the city lights. She had been married to Kang Tae-hyun for 4 years. 4 years of learning to read his silences. 4 years of understanding that his love, if it could be called that, was expressed through control, possession, and the systematic elimination of anyone who threatened what was his. She had never been a fool. But she had believed, foolishly perhaps, that she was different. That the way he looked at her meant something beyond ownership. Her phone buzzed. A message from her younger sister in Lagos. "Sis, are you watching the news? Someone posted a video. What is happening?" Amora turned off her phone. She would not explain what she did not yet understand herself. 30 floors below, the ballroom had descended into chaos. Kang Tae-hyun stood exactly where his wife had left him, a pillar of ice amid swirling whispers. His black tuxedo was immaculate. His expression revealed nothing. But those who knew him, those who had built fortunes and lost them at his feet, recognized the danger in his stillness. The dragon tattoo on his neck seemed to breathe. Tae-hyun. The mistress, Yoon Seo-yeon, reached for his arm. Her Chanel dress hugged her slender frame. Diamond earrings caught the light as she smiled. "Aren't you going to say something?" He looked at her. Just looked. The smile faltered. "I did what you couldn't," she pressed, her voice lower now, uncertain. "I told the truth." She needed to know. Everyone needed to know that we. One word. Cold as winter graves. Seo-yeon's hand dropped. "I never used that word," Kang Tae-hyun said quietly. "I never gave you permission to use that word." He straightened his cufflinks, silver, engraved with the Kang family crest. The movement was unhurried. Precise. "You've made a mistake tonight, Seo-yeon." "A mistake?" Her laugh was brittle. "I'm carrying your child. Your heir. The one thing that barren African woman could never give you." His eyes flickered. Something shifted in the air. Seo-yeon stopped speaking. The guests had begun recording on their phones. Tomorrow, this would be international news. The Kang Empire's dirty laundry, aired for the world's entertainment. Kang Tae-hyun was aware of every lens pointed in his direction. He was also aware that his wife had walked away without a single word. Without tears. Without the expected performance of wounded femininity that would have garnered sympathy and softened the blow. She had given them nothing. And in doing so, she had made him look like the villain. Clever, he thought, despite himself. He had always known Amora was intelligent. It was one of the reasons he had pursued her 4 years ago, in London, where she had been completing her master's degree in international law. She had refused him twice before accepting his invitation to dinner. No woman had ever refused him anything. It had intrigued him. Then it had obsessed him. Now, Mr. Kang. His assistant, Park Minute-jun, appeared at his elbow. The car is ready. I've cleared a path through the back entrance. Kang Tae-hyun nodded once. He did not spare Se-yeon another glance as he walked away. But his mind was already calculating. His wife had not screamed. That meant she had a plan. And Amora's plans, he had learned, were always more dangerous than his own. London. Autumn. The leaves were falling when Amora Okoye first saw Kang Tae-hyun. She was sitting in a coffee shop near the British Library, case files spread across the small table, when the atmosphere shifted. Conversations hushed. The barista's hand trembled as she prepared a drink. Amora looked up. He stood in the doorway like a man who had never been denied entry anywhere. Tall. Sharp-featured. Eyes that assessed and dismissed in a single sweep. He wore a dark coat that probably cost more than her annual tuition. His black hair was swept back, revealing a strong forehead and a jawline that could cut glass. And on his neck, just visible above his collar, she glimpsed the edge of a tattoo. A dragon's tail. Their eyes met. Amora felt nothing. Or so she told herself. She returned to her case files. He approached anyway. This seat taken. His English was perfect, accented only slightly. His voice was low, controlled, the voice of a man accustomed to being obeyed. Amora didn't look up. Yes. I don't see anyone. I'm expecting someone. You're lying. That made her look up. His lips curved, not quite a smile. More like the beginning of amusement, quickly suppressed. Your body language, he explained. No tension of anticipation. No glancing at the door. You're not waiting for anyone. You simply don't want company. Amora closed her case file. And yet you're still standing there. I'm persistent. You're intrusive. Perhaps. He sat down anyway, folding his tall frame into the chair opposite her. But I've learned that the best things in life require a certain disregard for boundaries. Amora gathered her papers. I'm leaving. I haven't introduced myself. I didn't ask you to. She stood, slinging her bag over her shoulder. He remained seated, watching her with those cold, calculating eyes. My name is Kang Tae-hyun. I don't care. You will. The confidence in his voice was so absolute that Amora paused. She shouldn't have. Goodbye, Mr. Kang. She walked out into the autumn air, leaves crunching beneath her boots. She didn't look back. But she felt his gaze follow her until she disappeared around the corner. He found her again 3 days later. This time at a charity gala hosted by the Nigerian embassy. Amora had been invited as a student representative, chosen for her academic excellence and her composure under pressure. She wore a green gown, emerald, like the forests of her homeland. Her braids were twisted into an elegant updo, small golden beads woven through like constellations. She was discussing trade law with an elderly diplomat when the room grew quiet. Kang Tae-hyun entered. He was not on the guest list. But men like him did not need invitations. He moved through the crowd like a shark through still water. People parted. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. The Nigerian ambassador himself approached to shake his hand. And then Tae-hyun's eyes found Amora. Across the ballroom. Through the sea of faces. As if she were the only person who existed. He did not approach immediately. For an hour, he conducted business. Shook hands. Accepted champagne he did not drink. But his attention never fully left her. Amora was aware of every glance. She hated that she was aware. The Korean gentleman keeps looking at you, her aunt whispered in Igbo. Aunt Ngozi had flown in from Lagos for the event, determined to see her niece succeed in the Western world. Do you know him? No. He looks wealthy. Auntie. I'm just saying. Ngozi smiled knowingly. Your mother would want you to consider all options. Amora's mother had been dead for 6 years. She did not respond. Later, On the terrace, Amora sought fresh air and silence. She found neither. You changed your hair. His voice came from the shadows. She turned to find Kang Tae-hyun leaning against the stone railing, watching her with unsettling intensity. The tattoo on his neck was more visible now, a dragon ascending, its body disappearing beneath his shirt collar. Are you following me? Amora demanded. Define following. Appearing wherever I am. Coincidence. Twice in 3 days. Fate, then. She exhaled sharply. I don't believe in fate. Neither do I. He stepped closer. The moonlight caught the sharp planes of his face. I believe in strategy. In identifying what I want and pursuing it with absolute precision. And what do you want, Mr. Kang? He did not answer immediately. His gaze traveled over her face, her dark skin gleaming under the terrace lights, her full lips pressed together in displeasure, her brown eyes wary but unflinching. Dinner, he finally said. No. Tomorrow. 8 o'clock. I said no. You'll change your mind. You don't know me. I know that you're the most interesting person at this gala. He tilted his head slightly. I know that you're studying international law because you want to protect people who cannot protect themselves. I know that your father disapproved of your choice to study abroad, but you came anyway. I know that you have been alone in this country for 2 years and you haven't allowed anyone close. Amora's heart was pounding. How do you know these things? I make it my business to know everything about what interests me. She should have been afraid. Any reasonable woman would have been. Instead, she felt something else. Something dangerous. Recognition. Here was another person who wore masks. Who calculated every word. Who understood that the world was not kind to those who showed their true selves. One dinner, Kang Tae-hyun said quietly. After that, if you wish never to see me again, I will disappear. Amora studied him, his controlled expression, his still hands, the faint tension in his shoulders that betrayed a nervousness he would never admit. No, she said for the 3rd time. And then, but ask me again next week. She walked past him without another word. Behind her, Kang Tae-hyun smiled. It was the first genuine smile he had allowed himself in years. He asked her again a week later. She said yes. The dinner was at an exclusive restaurant in Mayfair, the kind with no prices on the menu and waiters who moved like ghosts. Amora arrived in a simple black dress, her braids loose around her shoulders. Kang Tae-hyun was already seated. He rose when she entered, a gesture of respect that surprised her. You came. I said I would. People say many things. I don't. She took her seat, maintaining careful distance. I keep my word. His eyes darkened with something she couldn't name. That, he said softly, is extraordinarily rare. They talked for 3 hours. About law. About business. About the weight of family expectations and the loneliness of excellence. He told her about his father's death, how the old man had built an empire and left nothing but enemies. She told him about her mother's illness, how she had watched her fade over months, powerless to save her. Neither spoke of love. But something shifted between them that night. Amora saw beyond the mask of the powerful billionaire. She glimpsed the boy who had inherited blood feuds at 16. The young man who had survived assassination attempts before he could legally drink. The adult who had learned to show nothing because showing anything meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant death. Kang Tae-hyun, in turn, saw beyond Amora's composure. He recognized the grief she carried like a second skin. The determination forged in struggle. The intelligence that made her dangerous in ways she didn't yet understand. They were not opposites. They were mirrors. And mirrors, when placed together, create infinite reflections, beautiful and disorienting in equal measure. He kissed her for the first time 3 months later. It was December. Snow fell soft and silent over London. Amora was walking through Hyde Park when he appeared beside her, his breath clouding in the cold air. You'll freeze, he said, removing his coat and draping it over her shoulders before she could protest. I'm Nigerian. We're hardy. You're stubborn. That too. He stopped walking. She turned to face him, snow catching in her braids like scattered diamonds. Amora. The way he said her name, like it was a secret, precious and protected, made her breath catch. What? He stepped closer. Close enough that she could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. Close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body despite the cold. I'm going to kiss you now. You should ask first. Should I? Her heart was racing. Yes. Then I'm asking. His voice dropped to a whisper. May I? She should have said no. She had been saying no for months. No to dinner, no to flowers, no to the jewelry boxes that appeared at her apartment door, no to the way he looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered in his carefully controlled world. But she was tired of saying no. Yes, she breathed. He kissed her. The world disappeared. They married 6 months later in a private ceremony on Jeju Island. Amora wore white silk and traditional Nigerian coral beads. Kang Tae-hyun wore black, the dragon tattoo on his neck visible above his collar, a deliberate choice. A statement. She is mine now, the tattoo seemed to say. Harm her and face me. There were only 12 guests. Amora's father had refused to attend, calling her a foolish girl who abandons her roots for a stranger. Her aunt Ngozi had come, weeping happy tears throughout the ceremony. Tae-hyun's family sent representatives but no warmth. The Kang dynasty did not approve of foreign brides. But Tae-hyun's power was absolute, and no one dared voice dissent where he could hear. You're certain? He had asked the night before, in the darkness of their hotel suite. This world I'm bringing you into, it will try to destroy you. Amora had touched his face, tracing the hard line of his jaw. Let it try. The first year was almost beautiful. Almost. Amora learned to navigate Seoul's elite society, the careful hierarchies, the veiled insults, the wives who smiled while calculating how to destroy her. She learned Korean, though most spoke English in her presence. She learned to read the politics of business dinners, identifying allies and enemies by the tilt of a champagne glass. And she learned her husband. Kang Tae-hyun was not capable of tenderness in the way ordinary men were. He did not bring flowers or write poetry. He did not whisper sweet nothings in the dark. But he noticed when she was tired. He remembered that she hated oysters and loved mango. He had a wing of his corporate library converted into a space where she could work on international human rights cases, pro bono work that he funded anonymously, work that mattered to her. He showed love through action. Through control, yes, she was never unprotected, never unmonitored. But also through sacrifice. Through the subtle ways he bent his iron will to accommodate hers. She thought it was enough. The problems began in year 2. They had been trying for a child. Month after month, hope followed by disappointment. Doctors consulted. Tests run. Everything normal, they said. Just give it time. But time became pressure. The Kang family elders grew vocal in their disapproval. An heir was needed. The dynasty could not rest on a foreign wife who could not produce. Whispers reached Amora's ears. Barren. Cursed womb. He should take a Korean woman. Someone whose blood is pure. Tae-hyun silenced them publicly. But privately, he grew distant. Not cruel. Never cruel. But the warmth that had begun to thaw his frozen exterior began to retreat. He worked longer hours. He spoke less. He looked at her sometimes with an expression she could not read. Guilt, perhaps. Or doubt. The night everything changed, they had argued. Not about children, they never spoke of that directly. But about her work. She had taken on a case involving a Korean corporation accused of labor violations in Nigeria. The evidence trail led uncomfortably close to one of Tae-hyun's business partners. Drop the case, he had said flatly. No. It will cause problems. For whom? For the workers being exploited, or for your profit margins? His eyes had gone cold. The dragon tattoo seemed to darken. You don't understand how things work here. I understand that people are being hurt. I understand that I swore an oath to seek justice. You swore vows to me first. The silence that followed was devastating. Amora had stared at this man she had married, this powerful, controlling, complicated man she had believed she understood. I didn't marry you to become your property, she said quietly. I married you because I thought we were equals. She had walked out of his study. He had not followed. That was the night Yoon Seo-yeon entered their lives. Not directly, not yet. But somewhere in Seoul's glittering nightlife, a young heiress with perfectly styled hair and calculating eyes, had noticed that Kang Tae-hyun attended a business dinner alone. His wife was not beside him. In that world, such things were noticed. Catalogued. Exploited. Se-yeon had studied her prey for months before making her move. She was patient. Strategic. Everything Amora was, but without the moral compass. She wanted power. And Kang Tae-hyun was the most powerful man in Seoul. Yoon Se-yeon came from old money and new ambition. Her family's pharmaceutical empire had funded 3 generations of luxury, but power, true power, eluded them. They were wealthy, not untouchable. Rich, not feared. The Kang dynasty represented both. Se-yeon had first seen Tae-hyun at a shareholders' meeting when she was 24. He had been 35 then, newly married, utterly indifferent to her existence. She had never forgotten the indifference. It had burned in her for years. Then she had heard the rumors. The African wife could not produce an heir. The marriage was strained. The Iron Phantom was seen alone more often than not. Opportunity whispered. She made her approach at a charity auction. Amora was absent, attending a human rights conference in Geneva. Tae-hyun was surrounded by sycophants, bored and distant, when Se-yeon positioned herself in his eye line. She did not approach immediately. She was too clever for that. Instead, she allowed herself to be noticed. A glimpse here. A turned shoulder there. The sophisticated game of appearing disinterested while being thoroughly calculated. It took 3 events before she finally spoke to him. "The Monet you purchased," she said, materializing beside him at a gallery opening. "Interesting choice." He looked at her, truly looked, for the first time. "You know art. I know that you bought it not because you appreciate Impressionism, but because your rival wanted it." She smiled. "I also know that you donated it to a museum the next morning. You didn't want the painting. You just didn't want him to have it." Something flickered in Tae-hyun's eyes. Not attraction, but recognition. Here was another predator speaking his language. Their affair, if it could be called that, was not about passion. For Se-yeon, it was strategy. A chess move toward ultimate power. For Tae-hyun, later, he would struggle to understand what it had been for him. Distraction? Weakness? The bitter comfort of someone who asked nothing of him emotionally? Amora demanded his soul. Se-yeon demanded only his presence. In those dark months, the latter seemed easier. The first time it happened, they were both drunk. That was the excuse he told himself afterward. Wine at a business dinner. A shade car. Her hand on his thigh. He had not stopped her. He had not stopped any of it. And when it was over, when he lay in a hotel suite that was not his home, staring at a ceiling that did not belong to him, he felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. That emptiness terrified him. He told himself it was temporary. A moment of weakness. An aberration that would not be repeated. But Se-yeon was patient. She did not demand his time. She did not create drama. She simply made herself available, a pressure valve for his stress, a companion in his loneliness that demanded nothing in return. Or so it seemed. In reality, every encounter was documented. Every meeting recorded. Evidence gathered against the day she would need leverage. Because Se-yeon understood what Tae-hyun refused to see. He would never leave his wife. The way he looked at Amora, even in their worst moments, was different from how he looked at anyone else. There was anger there, yes. Frustration. Perhaps even resentment. But beneath it all, devotion. Obsessive, unwilling, inescapable devotion. Se-yeon couldn't compete with that. So she would destroy it instead. Amora knew something was wrong. She couldn't prove it. Tae-hyun was too careful, too controlled. He returned home at reasonable hours. He answered his phone when she called. He was present in all the ways that could be observed. But his eyes had changed. When he looked at her now, she saw something that hadn't been there before. Guilt, perhaps. Or shame. Something that created distance even when he held her close. "You're pulling away," she said one night, in the darkness of their bedroom. "I'm tired." "You're lying." He turned toward her. The city lights painted shadows across his face, obscured the dragon tattoo that curved along his neck. "What do you want from me, Amora?" The question was not hostile. It was exhausted. Confused. Perhaps even afraid. I want the truth. The truth about what? About whatever is standing between us. He was silent for a long moment. Then, some truths destroy more than they heal. Amora felt cold despite the warm blankets. Is there someone else? The question hung in the air. Taehyun did not answer. Which was, of course, an answer in itself. She did not confront him immediately. Amora was too intelligent for that, too aware of how power worked in this world her husband commanded. Without evidence, accusation would be met with denial. Without proof, she would look paranoid. Jealous. Weak. So she waited. She watched. And she began to gather information. Park Minute-jun, Taehyun's assistant, had always been kind to her. He was the one who ensured her favorite tea was stocked in the penthouse. The one who reminded her of appointments and discreetly warned her about which business wives to avoid at which events. He was also, she suspected, the keeper of her husband's secrets. Minute-jun. He looked up from his tablet, startled to find her standing in the doorway of Taehyun's home office. Mrs. Kang. Can I help you? Who is Yoon Se-yeon? The flicker in his eyes was brief. But it was enough. She's an associate of your husband's. Her family owns. I know who her family is. Amora's voice remained calm. Terrifyingly calm. I want to know why her name appears on my husband's private calendar 15 times in the last month. I want to know why the security detail logs show her entering his offices after business hours. I want to know why you look like you're about to be sick right now. Minute-jun swallowed. Mrs. Kang, don't lie to me. She stepped closer. You've been loyal to him for years. But you've also shown me kindness. So I'm giving you a choice. Tell me the truth now, and I'll remember that kindness. Force me to discover it myself, and I'll remember that too. The silence stretched. Then Minute-jun made his choice. Later, alone, Amora sat in the garden that overlooked Seoul's skyline. The city glittered below, indifferent to her pain, oblivious to the fractures spreading through her world. She had the truth now. Every detail. Every date. Every carefully hidden moment of betrayal. She should have felt rage. Grief. Despair. Instead, she felt a strange, cold clarity. Her mother had once told her, when a man shows you who he is, believe him. But when a woman reveals her strength, that is when empires fall. Amora stood. The night air was cool against her skin. She began to plan. 6 months later, the Grand Hanwhat Hotel. The gala had been Taehyun's idea, a showcase of the Kang Empire's latest charitable foundation. $100 million pledged to global humanitarian efforts. Good press. Clean image. Amora had smiled through the preparations, played the dutiful wife, betrayed nothing. But she had known something was coming. She had watched Se-yeon grow bolder in recent weeks. The younger woman's name appeared more frequently in social columns. She was photographed at events that overlapped with Taehyun's schedule. Her family's business had mysteriously secured 2 major contracts with Kang subsidiaries. And then, 3 weeks ago, Se-yeon had looked directly at Amora across a crowded room and smiled. It was the smile of a woman who believed she had won. The pregnancy announcement was timed for maximum damage. Prime time. 500 witnesses. International press. Se-yeon had entered the ballroom late, a deliberate choice to ensure all eyes were upon her. Her silver dress caught the light. Her hand rested deliberately on her stomach. She had walked directly to where Taehyun and Amora stood with a group of diplomats. And she had spoken. I'm pregnant for your husband. He's mine now. What happened next would be analyzed for years. Amora's silence. Not wounded silence. Not shocked silence. Something else entirely. She had looked at Se-yeon the way a scientist might observe an interesting but ultimately insignificant specimen. Then she had turned, set down her champagne glass with precise care, and walked away. No tears. No screaming. No dignity lost. Nothing but that devastating, incomprehensible silence. Taehyun found her in the penthouse an hour later. The suite was dark. Amora stood at the window, still in her burgundy gown, watching the city lights blur through glass. Amora. She didn't turn. I can explain. Still nothing. He moved closer, close enough to see her reflection in the window. Her face was calm. Too calm. She's lying, he said. The pregnancy, I never touched her without protection. Amora's voice was flat. Is that what you want to tell me? That you were careful while you betrayed our marriage? His jaw tightened. The dragon tattoo on his neck seemed to pulse. It meant nothing. Then why did you do it? The question landed like a knife. Taehyun had no answer. Because he had asked himself the same thing 1,000 times. Why Seoyeon? Why now? Why risk everything he had built with Amora, the only person who had ever made him feel human, for something that meant nothing? He couldn't explain his own weakness. And that terrified him more than anything. I'm leaving, Amora said quietly. No. It wasn't a request. Amora, he reached for her arm. She turned then, and he saw her eyes for the first time. They were not wounded. They were not even angry. They were empty. Don't touch me, she said, and her voice was so cold that he actually stepped back. Don't speak to me. Don't follow me. For 4 years, I gave you everything I had. My loyalty. My trust. My future. And you threw it away for a woman who sees you as nothing but a means to power. I'll fix this. You can't. I'll destroy her. Her family. Everything she has. You think that's what I want? Amora laughed, but there was no humor in it. I don't care about Yoon Seoyeon. She's nothing. A symptom, not the disease. She moved past him toward the door. The disease, she said without turning, is that I married a man who doesn't know how to love without destroying. And I stayed long enough to let him destroy me. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Taehyun stood alone in the darkness. For the first time in his adult life, he did not know what to do. News of the scandal spread like wildfire. By morning, it was international headlines. The Kang Empire's stock dropped 6%. Board members demanded emergency meetings. Business partners distanced themselves. The carefully constructed image of the untouchable billionaire crumbled in real time. Seoyeon, meanwhile, was celebrating. She held a press conference outside her family's estate, cradling her stomach, dabbing artfully at tears. I never wanted this to become public, she told the cameras. But I have a responsibility to my child. Taehyun's child. The next heir to the Kang dynasty. She spoke of love. Of promises made. Of a future together once the unfortunate entanglement of his marriage was resolved. She did not speak of the contract her lawyers were preparing, the one that would give her a significant stake in Kang Industries upon marriage. She did not speak of the evidence she had fabricated, the timeline she had manipulated, the holes in her story that a careful investigation would reveal. She thought she had won. Amora disappeared. Not literally, she was still in Seoul, staying at a hotel under her maiden name. But she had vanished from public view, refused all interview requests, and disconnected her phone. Her aunt Ngozi flew in from Lagos within 48 hours. You're coming home, Ngozi declared, bursting into the hotel suite. I've already booked flights. Your father wants to see you. My father said I was dead to him when I married Taehyun. He didn't mean. He meant every word. Amora's voice was calm but firm. And I'm not running back to Nigeria like a wounded animal. I have work here. Cases. Responsibilities. Responsibilities to whom? The man who humiliated you. To myself. Ngozi fell silent. She studied her niece, this composed, elegant woman who had never broken, not even when her mother died, not even when the world turned against her. What are you planning, Amora? For the first time, something flickered in Amora's eyes. Something dangerous. I'm going to find out the truth about that pregnancy. And then I'm going to decide what kind of woman I want to be in this next chapter of my life. Amora began with the medical records. It wasn't easy, Korean healthcare privacy laws were strict. But she had contacts from her human rights work. Doctors who owed favors. Administrators who could be persuaded. Within a week, she had answers. Seoyeon was pregnant. The timeline was consistent with her claimed affair with Taehyun. But there were anomalies. Small things. A prescription that didn't match standard prenatal care. A laboratory visit that seemed out of place. Notes in the file that had been altered, badly, by someone who didn't understand how digital records stored revision histories. Amora dug deeper. Meanwhile, Taehyun was hunting. Not for Amora, he knew where she was. His security team tracked her movements daily, a fact that would have infuriated her if she'd known. No, he was hunting Seo-yeon. I want everything, he told Park Minute-jun, his voice deadly calm. Every secret she's ever had. Every lie she's ever told. Every person she's ever wronged. Sir, should we coordinate with Mrs. Kang? No. The word was final. My wife doesn't need to be involved in this. She's been hurt enough by my failures. I'll clean up my own mess. Minute-jun hesitated. Sir, I should tell you. Mrs. Kang has been conducting her own investigation. Taehyun's eyes sharpened. What do you mean? She's accessed medical records. Contacted former employees of the Yoon family. She's building a case, but I don't know for what purpose. For a moment, something like pride flickered across Taehyun's face. His wife was fighting back. He should have expected nothing less. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Jung Ha-won was a laboratory technician who had been fired from the Yoon family's private clinic 6 months earlier. She had signed an NDA that should have kept her silent. But Amora was persuasive. More importantly, Amora offered something the Yoon family couldn't: protection. The baby isn't his. Ha-won spoke quietly, glancing around the coffee shop as if expecting to be watched. Her hands trembled around her cup. Amora remained perfectly still. Explain. Ms. Yoon came to our clinic 3 months ago. She wanted a paternity test, a private one, completely off the books. She brought in samples, said she needed to confirm something before going public. And the samples she provided for the father, they didn't match. The biological father isn't Kang Taehyun. Amora's heart was pounding, but her expression revealed nothing. Then who? Ha-won shook her head. I don't know. But I know what she did next. She demanded the records be altered. She paid twice my annual salary to make the real results disappear and fabricate new ones. When I refused, when I said I would report it. Her voice broke. They destroyed me. Fired me. Blacklisted me from every lab in the country. They said if I ever spoke about this, they would make sure I never worked again. But you're speaking now. Because I'm tired of being afraid. Ha-won met Amora's eyes. And because you're the only person who might actually be able to stop her. Amora had the truth. Now she needed to decide what to do with it. The easy path would be to expose Seo-yeon immediately. Call a press conference. Present the evidence. Watch the other woman's carefully constructed lies crumble. But Amora understood something that Seo-yeon did not. Destruction was easy. Justice was harder. And what she wanted, truly wanted, was not revenge. It was freedom. She met Taehyun 3 days later, at a neutral location, a traditional tea house in a quiet corner of Seoul. He was already there when she arrived, seated at a low table, his posture rigid with tension. The dragon tattoo on his neck was visible above his collar, a reminder of who he was. What he was capable of. Amora sat across from him. Neither spoke for a long moment. Then, the baby isn't yours. His eyes flickered. What? Seo-yeon's child. It isn't yours. The paternity test she's been waving around is fabricated. She paid to have the results altered. Amora placed a folder on the table, copies of the real records, Ha-won's sworn statement, documentation of the payments made to alter the files. Taehyun's hand reached for the folder. His fingers trembled. Just slightly. Enough for Amora to notice. He read in silence. Page after page. Document after document. His face revealed nothing, but the tension in his shoulders grew with each passing moment. When he finished, he looked up. How did you find this? I investigated. Why? Because I needed to know. Her voice was steady. I needed to know if you had been completely truthful with me. If the affair was as you described, or if there was more. And Amora met his eyes. The affair was real. You did betray me. But this pregnancy, this claim on your legacy, it was manufactured. Seo-yeon saw an opportunity and she took it. To do what? To trap you. To force a marriage. To gain control of the Kang Empire through your child, except the child was never yours. Taehyun closed his eyes. His hands flattened on the table, steadying himself. The dragon tattoo on his wrist was fully visible now, the ink dark against his pale skin. I've been a fool, he said quietly. Yes. He opened his eyes. I don't deserve your help in discovering this. No. You don't. Then why? Amora was silent for a moment. Then, because I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for myself. I needed closure. I needed to understand the full truth before I could decide what comes next. And what comes next? She stood. Goodbye, Taehyun. She walked toward the door. Wait. His voice cracked on the word, something she had never heard before. Kang Taehyun did not crack. Did not break. Did not show weakness. But he was breaking now. Amora, please. She stopped. Did not turn. I know I destroyed us, he said, and his voice was raw in a way that made her heart ache despite everything. I know I can never undo what I did. But I am asking you, begging you, for a chance to make it right. There is no making it right. Then let me spend the rest of my life trying. Amora finally turned. She looked at this man she had loved, still loved, God help her, despite everything. She saw the desperation in his eyes. The genuine anguish. The shattered remains of the controlled mask he had worn for so long. Why? She asked softly. Why does it matter now? Because I love you. The words hung in the air. Simple. Devastating. Years too late. I've always loved you, he continued, rising from the table, moving toward her with unsteady steps. From the moment I saw you in that coffee shop in London, reading case files, ignoring me like I was nobody. You were the only person who ever made me feel. He stopped. Searched for words. Human, he finally said. You made me feel human. And I was so terrified of that feeling, so afraid of what it meant to be vulnerable, that I sabotaged the only good thing in my life. Amora's eyes were burning. She would not cry. She refused to cry. Words are easy, she said. Then let me show you. He was close now, close enough to touch if she allowed it. Let me spend every day proving that I can be the man you deserved from the beginning. Let me. Stop. He stopped. Amora took a breath. Then another. I'm leaving Seoul, she said. Tomorrow. I've accepted a position with the International Criminal Court in The Hague. I'll be working on cases that matter, cases that will actually help people. His face went pale. For how long? I don't know. Months. Maybe years. Amora. Don't. She held up her hand. Don't ask me to stay. Don't ask me to choose you over my own healing. You don't have that right anymore. He swallowed hard. What if I wait? What? What if I wait for you? However long it takes. Whatever you need. His voice was barely above a whisper. What if I prove, over time, that I've changed? That I can be trusted? Amora studied him, this powerful, broken man standing before her, offering something he had never offered anyone. His pride. His certainty. His control. You can do whatever you want, she said finally. But I'm not making any promises. I'm not giving you hope to cling to. I'm walking out that door, and I'm living my life, and if you choose to wait, that's your decision. Not mine. She turned to leave. His voice followed her. I'll wait. However long it takes. I'll wait for you, Amora. She didn't respond. She walked out into the Seoul afternoon, the autumn air cool against her face. She didn't look back. 3 days before Amora's departure, Yoon Se-yeon's world collapsed. It began with a press conference, not from Amora, who had refused to participate, but from Kang Taehyun himself. He stood before 100 cameras, alone, the dragon tattoo on his neck visible to the world. I have made mistakes, he said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was admitting. I betrayed my marriage. I hurt the woman I love. Those failures are mine to carry, and I will carry them for the rest of my life. The room was silent. However, he continued, I will not be manipulated. I will not be used. And I will not allow lies to stand unchallenged. He nodded to Minute Jun, who activated the presentation behind him. Documents appeared on screen. Medical records. Sworn statements. Evidence of fabrication. The pregnancy that has been attributed to me is a fraud. The child Yoon Se-yeon carries is not mine. The paternity test she has publicized was falsified through bribery and corruption. The true biological father is. He paused. Lee Jun-ho. A junior executive at Yoon Pharmaceuticals. They have been involved for over 2 years. The room erupted. Se-yeon was arrested within the hour. Fraud. Defamation. Conspiracy. The charges multiplied as investigators dug deeper into her schemes. Her family's empire began to crumble. Board members resigned. Partners withdrew. The Yoon name, once synonymous with old money respectability, became a cautionary tale. Se-yeon herself was released on bail but placed under house arrest. She was, by all accounts, completely destroyed. But Amora took no pleasure in it. The night before her flight to The Hague, Amora visited her aunt Ngozi at the hotel. "You're sure about this?" Ngozi asked, helping her fold clothes. "Starting over in a new country, alone?" "I won't be alone. I'll have my work. My purpose. But no husband." Amora paused. "Auntie. I spent 4 years building my life around a man. Accommodating his world. Supporting his legacy. I lost myself in that marriage. I need to remember who I was before, who I can still become." Ngozi studied her niece with wise eyes. "And Kang Tae-hyun? He says he'll wait." "I know. Do you believe him?" Amora was silent for a long moment. "I believe that he believes it. Today. But time changes people. Distance creates clarity. In a year, in 5 years, he may realize that waiting for me is not worth the cost. And if he doesn't? If he waits?" Amora resumed folding. "Then maybe, someday, we'll have another conversation. But I'm not counting on it. And I'm not living for it." She picked up a photograph from her suitcase, the two of them on their wedding day, young and hopeful, before the world cracked them open. Slowly, carefully, she placed it back in the drawer. "Some chapters," she said softly, "need to end before new ones can begin." The next morning, at Incheon Airport, Amora walked toward her gate. She didn't notice the black car parked outside departures. She didn't see Kang Tae-hyun standing at the window of a private lounge, watching her disappear into the crowd. She didn't see the way his hand pressed against the glass, as if he could reach through it. She didn't hear him whisper, "I'll wait." The plane took off at 10:47 a.m. Amora watched Seoul shrink below her until it disappeared into clouds. She closed her eyes. And she let herself breathe. 6 months later. The Hague. Amora had found peace. Not happiness, not yet. The wounds were too fresh, the scars too deep. But peace was a beginning. Her work at the ICC was demanding, consuming, exactly what she needed. Cases involving war crimes, human trafficking, corporate exploitation. Battles worth fighting. Purposes worth pursuing. She had made friends, colleagues who knew nothing of Korean chaebols or public scandals. She had found an apartment overlooking a canal, filled it with books and plants and memories of home. She had rebuilt. The letters arrived monthly. Handwritten, on expensive paper, bearing the Kang family seal. They were never long. Tae-hyun had never been a man of many words. But they were honest. "I closed the Yoon deal today. It didn't make me happy. Nothing does anymore. I started therapy. I know you would approve. The therapist says I have severe attachment issues and an inability to express vulnerability." I could have told her that for free. "I saw braided hair in the market today. Your style." I stood there for 10 minutes before the vendor asked if I was all right. I wasn't. "I'm learning to cook Nigerian food. The jollof rice was a disaster. I think I may have committed a cultural crime." She read each letter. She never responded. But she didn't throw them away, either. At the 1-year mark, a package arrived. Inside, a first edition of Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. Her favorite book. The one she had mentioned on their first date, years ago, in a London restaurant that now felt like another lifetime. There was no note. There didn't need to be. 18 months after her departure, Amora returned to Seoul for a conference, International Criminal Law, hosted by Seoul National University. She had tried to decline, to send a colleague instead. But something drew her back. She told herself it was professional obligation. She told herself it was closure. She told herself many things. The city had changed. Or perhaps she had changed, and the city simply reflected her new eyes. She saw beauty she had missed before. Hidden temples between skyscrapers. Han River at sunset. The way old traditions wove through modern glass and steel. She also saw his name. Everywhere. Kang Tae-hyun had expanded his empire in her absence. New buildings. New ventures. A charitable foundation that bore her name, though few knew why. The Afro-Korean Foundation for Women's Education. $50 million. Schools built in 6 African countries. She had read about it in the news, but seeing it named on buildings, on plaques, on the grateful faces of young women in photographs. It was different. Real. He found her on the second day. She was walking through Gyeongbokgung Palace, alone, watching tour groups pass by in traditional hanbok. His voice came from behind her. You always loved it here. She turned. He stood 10 feet away. He looked older. Not weaker, never that, but changed. The sharp edges seemed softer somehow. The dragon tattoo on his neck was the same, but his eyes held something new. Humility. You're stalking me again, she said. Old habits. Despite herself, she almost smiled. You look well, he said. I am well. I'm glad. They stood in silence as tourists flowed around them, unaware that they were witnessing the reunion of 2 people who had once meant everything to each other. I got your letters, Amora finally said. I know. I didn't respond. I noticed. I wasn't ready. He nodded slowly. And now? She considered the question. Really considered it. For 18 months, she had been healing. Growing. Becoming the woman she was meant to be, independent of any man's shadow. But she had also been thinking. About forgiveness. About second chances. About whether the man who had hurt her was the same man standing before her now, humbled and waiting. Now, she said carefully, I'm willing to talk. Something shifted in his face. Hope, fragile, uncertain, carefully restrained. Talk. Dinner. Tomorrow. Somewhere quiet. I'll arrange it. I'll choose the place. His lips twitched. There she was. The woman who had never let him control everything. Whatever you want, he said. She nodded and began to walk away. Amora. She paused. I meant what I said. Every letter. Every word. I've spent 18 months becoming someone worthy of you. I don't know if I've succeeded. But I know I've tried harder than I've ever tried at anything in my life. She looked back at him. At this powerful man who had brought empires to their knees but couldn't stop the trembling in his voice when he spoke to her. Tomorrow, she said softly. And she walked away. But she was smiling. Just slightly. Just enough. Tomorrow, they would sit across from each other in a quiet restaurant. Tomorrow, they would begin the impossible work of rebuilding trust from ashes. Tomorrow, he would confess something he had never told her, a secret about their marriage, about the forces that had conspired against them from the beginning. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, Amora stood at her hotel window, watching Seoul glitter beneath her, and allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in 18 months. Hope. Her phone buzzed. A message from a number she didn't recognize. Don't trust him. He's lying about everything. The truth about your marriage will destroy you. Meet me tomorrow, 3 p.m., Namsan Tower. Come alone. A friend. The hope in her chest turned to ice. Below, in the shadows of a parking garage, Yoon Se-yeon lowered her phone and smiled. She had been patient. She had rebuilt her resources. And she was ready to finish what she had started. The war for Kang Tae-hyun's heart, and his empire, was far from over. When someone offers you the truth, ask yourself, whose truth is it? Sometimes the greatest deceptions come wrapped in honesty, and the most dangerous enemies are those who have already lost everything. The battle for love has only just begun. Amora stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Don't trust him. He's lying about everything. The truth about your marriage will destroy you. Meet me tomorrow, 3 p.m., Namsan Tower. Come alone. A friend. Her fingers hovered over the phone. Delete it. Ignore it. Focus on the dinner with Tae-hyun tomorrow night. That was the rational choice. But Amora had learned, painfully, that ignoring warnings often led to destruction. She had ignored the signs of Taehyun's affair for months. She had trusted when she should have questioned. Never again. She saved the message. Then she made a decision. The next morning, Amora did not go to her conference sessions. Instead, she contacted an old colleague from her human rights work, Kim Seminit, a former investigative journalist who now ran a private intelligence firm. They met in a coffee shop near Myeongdong. "You want me to trace a phone number?" Seminit raised an eyebrow. "That's basic work. Beneath my talents. I also want you to tell me everything that happened in the Kang family during the 18 months I was gone. Everything that didn't make the news." Seminit leaned back, studying Amora with sharp eyes. "That's more interesting. And more dangerous." "I know. The Kang Empire doesn't appreciate scrutiny." "I'm aware." A pause. Then Seminit smiled. "I always liked you, Amora. You have steel beneath that elegance." She pulled out a tablet. "Give me 48 hours. I'll have everything. I have until 3 p.m. today to decide whether to meet this friend." Seminit's fingers flew across the screen. "Then let's work fast." By noon, Amora had answers. The phone number traced to a burner, untraceable to any individual. But the location data told a story. The phone had been purchased 3 days ago in Gangnam. It had been used exclusively to send that single message. Someone had planned this carefully. Someone who knew Amora was back in Seoul. Someone who was watching. "There's more," Seminit said, sliding a folder across the table. Amora opened it. Inside, photographs. Documents. A timeline of events she had never known about. 6 months after you left, Kang Taehyun received a threat, Seminit explained. Someone attempted to blackmail him with information about your marriage, specifically, about the circumstances of your first meeting. Amora's blood chilled. "What circumstances?" "That's what I couldn't find. Whatever it was, Taehyun paid $50 million to make it disappear. The blackmailer was never identified." $50 million. Whatever secret he's protecting, it's worth more than most people's lives. Amora stared at the documents. Her first meeting with Taehyun. The coffee shop in London. The chance encounter that had changed everything. Except, what if it hadn't been chance? At 2:45 p.m., Amora stood at the base of Namsan Tower. The observation deck loomed above, tourists streaming past with cameras and selfie sticks. A cable car descended the mountain, its passengers oblivious to the tension coiling in her chest. She should have brought someone. She should have told Seminit where she was going. But the message had said come alone, and some part of her, the part that had survived 4 years in Taehyun's world, understood that this meeting required solitude. She took the elevator to the top. The observation deck was crowded with couples attaching love locks to the railings. Amora scanned the faces. Families. Tourists. Young lovers whispering promises. No one who seemed to be waiting. Then, you came. The voice came from her left. Amora turned. And her world tilted. Park Minit-jun stood before her. Taehyun's assistant. The man who had been kind to her throughout her marriage. The man who had told her about the affair. The man she had trusted. "You," Amora breathed. "Me." He looked different, thinner, older, lines of stress carved into his face. His eyes held something she had never seen before. Desperation. "You're the friend," she said flatly. "I know how this looks. It looks like manipulation. It's not. I swear to you, Mrs. Kang. Don't call me that." He flinched. "Amora," he corrected quietly. "Please. Just listen. 5 minutes. If you still want to leave after that, I won't stop you." She should walk away. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around, take the elevator, forget this conversation ever happened. But, 5 minutes, she said. They moved to a quieter corner of the deck, away from the crowds. Minit-jun's hands were shaking. "I've worked for Taehyun for 12 years, he began. "I know everything about him. His business. His secrets. His sins. I'm aware. Then you know I would never betray him lightly. I'm not doing this for money or revenge. I'm doing this because," his voice cracked, "because you deserve the truth. Before you let him back into your life." Amora waited. Your first meeting, Minute-jun continued. In London. The coffee shop. What about it? It wasn't an accident. The words landed like stones in still water. Taehyun had been tracking you for 6 months before that day. He knew your schedule, your habits, your vulnerabilities. He engineered the encounter to seem spontaneous, but it was calculated. Every moment. Every word. Amora's heart was pounding. Why? Because of your father. The world stopped. Her father. Chief Okoye. The man who had disowned her when she married Taehyun. The man she hadn't spoken to in 4 years. What does my father have to do with this? Minute-jun took a breath. 20 years ago, your father controlled the largest oil distribution network in West Africa. He was expanding into Asian markets, a move that would have made him one of the most powerful men in global energy. Amora knew this history. Her father's early success. His later retreat from international business. The Kang family saw him as a threat, Minute-jun continued. Taehyun's father, the previous chairman, wanted to eliminate the competition. But direct confrontation was too risky. So he devised another strategy. Which was? Minute-jun met her eyes. Marriage. The pieces began clicking together. Horrible, devastating pieces. Taehyun was ordered to seduce you, Minute-jun said quietly. To marry you. To bring your family into the Kang orbit, where they could be controlled. Your father's resistance to international expansion, his sudden retreat from Asian markets, it wasn't his choice. It was the price of your marriage. Amora felt nausea rising. You're saying? I'm saying that your entire relationship was orchestrated. From the first meeting to the wedding. Taehyun followed his father's orders. He made you fall in love with him because it served the family's interests. No. The word came out strangled. I'm sorry. No. Amora stepped back. This is a lie. This is, Se-yeon sent you. She's trying to destroy us again. Se-yeon doesn't know I'm here. No one knows I'm here. Minute-jun's eyes were wet. I'm telling you this because I watched you suffer for 4 years. I watched you love a man who was using you from the beginning. And now he's trying to get you back, but he hasn't told you the truth. He never intended to. Amora's vision blurred. She gripped the railing to steady herself. The affair, she whispered. With Se-yeon. Was that part of it too? No. That was his own failure. Minute-jun paused. But the pregnancy scheme, Se-yeon discovered the original arrangement. She tried to blackmail him with it. That's why he paid $50 million. Not to protect himself, to protect you. To prevent you from ever learning how your marriage really began. Amora stared at the Seoul skyline. The city she had learned to navigate. The world she had tried to belong to. All of it built on lies. Why are you telling me this now? She asked, her voice hollow. Because he's changed. She turned. Minute-jun's expression was anguished. I know how this sounds. I've just told you that your entire marriage was a manipulation, and now I'm saying he's changed. But it's true. The man Taehyun is now, he's not the man his father created. Losing you broke something in him. Rebuilt something else. Then why tell me at all? Because he won't. Minute-jun stepped closer. He's too afraid. He believes that if you know the truth, you'll never forgive him. So he'll keep lying, by omission, by silence. He'll try to win you back without ever giving you the full picture. And that's not fair to you. So you decided to destroy my chance at happiness instead. I decided to give you a choice. His voice was firm now. You can walk away, fully informed, completely free. Or you can confront him, demand the truth, force him to be honest for once in his life. But either way, the choice should be yours. Not his. Amora closed her eyes. The wind whipped around the observation deck, cold against her wet cheeks. She hadn't even realized she was crying. The dinner tonight, she said finally. He's planning to tell you something. A partial truth, about the blackmail, about what he paid to protect you. But not the whole story. Never the whole story. How do you know? Because I've written his talking points for 12 years. I know how he thinks. Silence. Then Amora opened her eyes. Thank you, she said quietly. Minute-jun looked surprised. For what? For respecting me enough to let me choose. She walked past him toward the elevator. Amora, what will you do? She didn't answer. She didn't know. The restaurant was private. Amora had chosen it specifically, a small hanok tucked away in Buchan, traditional architecture surrounding a courtyard garden. No cameras. No crowds. No witnesses to whatever would unfold. She arrived first. Sat in the corner. Waited. Taehyun entered at exactly 7 p.m. He wore a dark suit, simple and elegant. The dragon tattoo on his neck was visible above his collar, the mark of his family, his legacy, his chains. He saw her immediately. His face softened in a way that would have melted her heart yesterday. Today, it only made her ache. You look beautiful, he said, taking the seat across from her. Thank you. His eyes searched her face, sensing something different. Is everything all right? Why wouldn't it be? A pause. He didn't believe her. But he let it pass. I ordered your favorite wine, he said. I hope that's still. Taehyun. He stopped. Amora's voice was calm. Steady. Terrifying. Tell me about London. His face went pale. London. Our first meeting. The coffee shop. I don't understand what you're asking. Yes, you do. Silence stretched between them. The courtyard garden rustled in the evening breeze. Somewhere, a fountain trickled. The world continued its indifferent turning. Where is this coming from? His voice was careful now. Controlled. Does it matter? Yes. If someone has been filling your head with lies, then tell me the truth and prove them wrong. His jaw tightened. The dragon tattoo seemed to pulse. What exactly do you want to know? Amora leaned forward. Was it real? Was what real? Any of it. Our meeting. Our courtship. Our marriage. Her voice cracked despite herself. Was any of it real, or was I just a strategic acquisition? A business deal wrapped in romance? His face crumpled. That was the only word for it. The controlled mask he had worn for decades simply crumpled, revealing something raw and wounded beneath. Amora. Answer the question. It's not that simple. Yes or no, Taehyun. Was our meeting an accident, or was it planned? Silence. Long, devastating silence. Then, planned. The word hit her like a physical blow. She had known. Minute-jun had told her. But hearing it from his lips. And the courtship. Planned. His voice was barely audible. The proposal. Amora, please. The proposal, Taehyun. His eyes were wet. Yes. She stood. Her legs felt like they might collapse, but she forced them to hold her weight. Thank you for your honesty, she said, and her voice was ice. 4 years late, but better than never. Wait, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I was a chess piece. A means to control my father. A strategic asset dressed up as a wife. That's not, it started that way, yes. My father's orders. But it changed. I changed. When? She whirled to face him. When exactly did it change? Before or after you fell into bed with Seoyeon? He flinched. Before. Long before. Amora, I fell in love with you on our 3rd date. When you argued with me about economic policy for 2 hours and refused to back down even when you knew I could destroy your career with a phone call. I fell in love with your strength. Your integrity. Your absolute refusal to be intimidated by power. And yet you never told me the truth. Because I was afraid of exactly this. He gestured at the space between them. I was afraid that if you knew how it started, you would never believe how it became real. Amora stood frozen. Part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her wanted to forgive, to accept, to fall back into the complicated comfort of his arms. But another part, the part that had been hurt too many times, betrayed too deeply, that part couldn't. My father, she said quietly. What did you do to him? Taehyun's face hardened. He was a threat to my family's interests. What did you do? I didn't do anything. My father. What did your father do? Silence. Then, he made your father an offer. Withdrawal from Asian markets, and the Kang family would ensure his African operations remained unchallenged. Refuse, and we would destroy him. And my father accepted. Yes. Because of me. Because I was already involved with you. He was protecting you. In his own way. Amora laughed, a broken, bitter sound. Protecting me? He disowned me. He said I was dead to him. And you telling me that was protection. He was angry. Not at you, at the situation. At the trap he'd been placed in. A trap you helped create. Taehyun had no response. I need to leave, Amora said. Please, let me explain more. There's nothing more to explain. She gathered her bag with trembling hands. You used me. Your family used me. And the worst part, is that I actually loved you. Despite everything, I loved you. You still do. She froze. Don't. You still do. I can see it. I've always been able to see it. He stepped toward her. And I love you. More than I've ever loved anything. More than power. More than empire. More than my own worthless life. Then you should have told me the truth years ago. I know. I know. His voice broke. I was a coward. I am a coward. But I'm trying to change. I've spent 18 months trying to become someone worthy of you. You could spend a lifetime and it wouldn't be enough. She walked toward the door. Amora. Don't follow me. I can't just let you go. You don't have a choice. She reached the door. His voice stopped her one final time. The affair with Seoyeon, I need you to know something. She didn't turn. She approached me during our worst time. When you were pulling away because of the fertility issues. When my family was pressuring me constantly. When I felt like I was failing at everything, being a husband, being a Kang, being a man. That's not an excuse. No. It's not. But she knew exactly where to strike. She had information about our arrangement, not everything, but enough. She implied that if I didn't cooperate, she would tell you herself. Amora turned. You're saying she blackmailed you into the affair? I'm saying she manipulated the situation. It doesn't excuse my choices, I made them. But I want you to understand that it wasn't about attraction or love. It was about weakness. My weakness. Amora studied him. This man she had married. This stranger she had never truly known. And the pregnancy. I never slept with her without protection. Never. The child couldn't have been mine. But you believed it might be. He hesitated. For a moment. When she announced it. I doubted myself. Because you had slept with her. Yes. Amora absorbed this. Then she opened the door. Goodbye, Taehyun. She stepped out into the night. Amora didn't return to her hotel. She walked. Through the winding streets of Bukhan, past ancient hanok houses lit warm against the darkness. Through the crowds of Insadong, where tourists bargained for souvenirs and street food vendors called out their wares. Down to the Han River, where she finally stopped. The water was black and glittering. She stood at the railing and let herself shatter. Everything she had believed was a lie. Not the love, she believed that had become real, somehow, despite its poisoned origins. But the foundation. The story she had told herself about her own life. She had believed she was a woman who had found love against the odds. A Nigerian student who had captured the heart of a Korean billionaire through nothing but her own strength and character. Instead, she was a woman who had been hunted. Targeted. Acquired. Every moment of their courtship had been calculated. Every romantic gesture had served a purpose. Every whispered word of love had been, at least initially, part of a script. Her phone buzzed. A message from Taehyun. I know you need space. I'll give it to you. But please know, I meant everything. Every word since I truly fell for you. I will spend the rest of my life proving it if you let me. She didn't respond. Another message, from an unknown number. I warned you. Now you know. If you want the full truth, everything the Kang family has done, meet me tomorrow. Same time, same place. Amora stared at the second message. Seoyeon. It had to be. Minute Jun had delivered the initial blow, but this was the follow-up strike. The manipulation to drive the final wedge. She should ignore it. She should leave Seoul tomorrow, return to The Hague, forget any of this ever happened. But the full truth. If there was more, if there were other victims, other lives destroyed by the Kang family's machinations, could she walk away without knowing? The next day, Amora prepared for war. She didn't go to Namsan Tower at the designated time. Instead, she sent Seminit. If it's Seoyeon, I need to know, Amora explained. And I need to know what she's planning. You think she's trying to manipulate you? I think everyone in this city is trying to manipulate me. I'm tired of being the chess piece. It's time I became the player. Seminit grinned. Now you're speaking my language. Seminit's report came at 4 p.m. It was her. Yoon Seo-yeon. She arrived at 3 p.m. exactly, waited for 30 minutes, then left. She looked unhinged. Unhinged how? Thin. Nervous. Eyes constantly scanning. Whatever she's been doing since her house arrest ended, it hasn't been healthy. Amora considered this. Did you follow her? To an apartment complex in Gangnam. Modest place, not what you'd expect from someone of her background. I think the family money has dried up. And Minit-jun? Did you investigate his claims? Seminit's expression grew serious. I did. And Amora, he was telling the truth. I found records from 20 years ago, internal Kang family communications. Your father was targeted. Your relationship was engineered. The marriage was strategic. Amora closed her eyes. But there's more. More. The original plan, Taehyun's father's plan, didn't stop at marriage. The goal was to eventually absorb your father's entire business into the Kang empire. Use you as leverage to force a merger. What stopped it? Taehyun. Amora's eyes opened. What? About 2 years into your marriage, there was a board meeting. Taehyun's father, who was still alive then, proposed moving forward with the absorption plan. Taehyun refused. Publicly. Violently. Violently. He threatened to burn the entire empire to the ground rather than use you that way. Seminit consulted her notes. The exact quote, according to meeting minutes, was, "Touch her family, and I will destroy everything our ancestors built." I am not bluffing. Amora felt something crack in her chest. He protected my father. He protected your father. He protected you. He destroyed his relationship with his own family to do it. His father died 6 months later. There were rumors of a heart attack brought on by the stress of the confrontation. Taehyun has been alone in that family ever since. Everything shifted. Again. Amora went to Seoyeon's apartment that evening. She didn't announce herself. Didn't call ahead. Simply knocked on the door and waited. When Seoyeon opened it, her face cycled through shock, fear, and finally, hatred. You. Me. How did you find me? I have resources you can't imagine. Amora's voice was calm. May I come in? No. Then I'll say what I need to say here. Amora stepped closer. I know you've been trying to manipulate me. The mysterious messages. The friend who warned me about my husband. You thought you could use the truth as a weapon. Seoyeon's jaw tightened. It is a weapon. He used you from the beginning. I know. I also know that when given the choice to use me further, he refused. He protected my family at the cost of his own. Something flickered in Seoyeon's eyes. Uncertainty. That doesn't change what he did to me. What he did to you. Amora laughed, sharp, humorless. You tried to trap him with a fake pregnancy. You fabricated paternity tests. You destroyed your own reputation and nearly destroyed mine. You did that to yourself. He led me on. He made a terrible choice. And he's paying for it. But so are you. Look at yourself, Seoyeon. Look at what you've become. She gestured at the modest apartment, the woman's disheveled appearance, the desperation in her eyes. You had everything. Wealth. Status. A future. And you threw it away trying to possess a man who was never yours. A man who was always going to choose his wife, even when he was too foolish to admit it. Seoyeon's face crumpled. He never loved me. No. He used me. Perhaps. But you also used him. You're not a victim, Seo-yun. You're a predator who miscalculated. Silence. Then, what do you want? I want you to disappear. Leave Seoul. Leave Korea. Start over somewhere far from here, where the Kang name means nothing. You still have some family resources, use them to build a new life. And if I refuse? Amora smiled. It was not a kind smile. Then I will use every tool at my disposal to ensure your complete destruction. Not revenge, I'm beyond that. But protection. You have proven yourself to be a threat to my peace. I will eliminate that threat by any means necessary. Seo-yun stared at her. This was not the wounded wife she had expected. This was not the vulnerable target she had planned to manipulate. This was a woman who had found her power. I'll go, Seo-yun whispered. Good. Amora turned to leave. He does love you, you know. She paused. Whatever else was fake, the way he looks at you isn't. I've seen it. It's why I knew I could never really have him. Amora didn't respond. She walked away without looking back. 2 days passed. Amora attended her conference sessions, delivered her presentations, smiled at colleagues who knew nothing of the turmoil beneath her composure. And she thought. About truth. About forgiveness. About the complicated mathematics of love. Taehyun had done terrible things. He had also done remarkable things. He had used her. He had also protected her. He had lied. He had also loved. The question was, could one balance the other? On the third night, she went to him. Not to his office or his penthouse. Those spaces were tainted by their history. She went to the traditional tea house where they had first spoken after her return. Neutral ground. Clean space. He was already there. Waiting. As if he had known she would come. The original arrangement, she began without preamble. Tell me everything. Not the version Minute-jun gave me, yours. From the beginning. He nodded slowly. Then he told her. He spoke for 2 hours. About his father, the cold, calculating patriarch who had viewed children as tools and marriage as strategy. About the orders he had received at 29, to identify and pursue Amora Okoye as a means of controlling her father's empire. About the surveillance he had conducted. The psychological profile he had built. The carefully planned chance encounter in London. And about the moment everything changed. You looked up at me in that coffee shop, he said quietly, and your eyes held absolutely no fear. No intimidation. No calculation. You looked at me like I was just a person. An inconvenient person, but a person nonetheless. He shook his head. No one had ever looked at me like that. I had been the Iron Phantom since I was 16. A weapon. A legacy. Never just a man. And that changed things. That changed everything. I went back to my hotel that night and I looked at my father's briefing file on you, and I felt sick. Physically ill. Because you weren't a target anymore. You were a person, the most interesting person I had ever met. But you continued with the plan. I tried to stop. I told my father I couldn't do it. He threatened to destroy your father immediately, complete annihilation of his businesses, his reputation, his life. The plan was already in motion, backing out would only hurt you more. So you convinced yourself that continuing was protection. I convinced myself of a lot of things. Most of them lies. He told her about their courtship, how every calculated move had gradually become genuine. How he had fallen so deeply that he had forgotten the strategy entirely. He told her about their wedding, how he had stood at the altar and promised himself that he would spend his life making her happy, protecting her from the ugliness of his world. He told her about the confrontation with his father, the explosive argument that had ended the acquisition plan and destroyed his family relationships. He died thinking I was a failure, Taehyun said flatly. A weak man who had let a woman compromise the family's interests. His last words to me were disappointment. I'm sorry. Don't be. He was a monster. I spent my childhood terrified of him and my adulthood trying to please him. His death was a relief. That's a terrible thing to carry. It's only one of many terrible things. He met her eyes. I've done horrible things, Amora. In business. In family. In our marriage. I'm not asking you to forgive me, I'm not sure that's possible. Then what are you asking? For a chance to show you who I'm trying to become. The man I've been working to be for 18 months. The man who writes letters he doesn't send. Who funds foundations bearing your name. Who lies awake at night wondering if you're safe, if you're happy, if you found someone better. His voice cracked. Have you? Found someone better? Amora was silent for a long moment. No. Something like hope flickered in his eyes. But that doesn't mean I'm ready to trust you again. I understand. It doesn't mean I can simply forgive and forget. I know. It means. She took a breath. It means I'm willing to try. Slowly. Carefully. With complete honesty from this point forward. No more secrets. No more strategic omissions. If you hide anything from me, anything, we're done permanently. He nodded. I swear it. On my family's legacy. On everything I am. Your family's legacy means nothing to me. Then on the only thing that does mean something. He reached across the table, not touching her, just offering his hand. On my love for you. Which is the only true thing I've ever had. Amora looked at his hand. The dragon tattoo curved along his wrist, dark ink against pale skin. She didn't take it. Not yet. We start as strangers, she said. Everything before now is history. Dead. We begin again from zero. Whatever you need. And we go slowly. Dating. Conversations. Building trust from nothing. I'll wait as long as you require. She finally met his eyes. Ask me to dinner. He blinked. What? Ask me to dinner. Like you did in London. But this time, be real. Understanding dawned. A new beginning. He stood, straightening his jacket, composing himself as if they had never met before. Then he walked around the table, stopped before her, and bowed slightly. My name is Kang Tae-hyun. I am, among other things, a man with many regrets and one overwhelming hope. I would be honored if you would join me for dinner. Not tonight, whenever you're ready. Amora studied him. This powerful, broken, complicated man. This stranger she was choosing to know again. My name is Amora Okoye. I am, among other things, a woman who has been hurt and is learning to heal. I accept your invitation, but I choose the restaurant. His lips curved. Just slightly. Whatever you want. She stood, gathering her things. I'll be in touch. She walked past him toward the door. His voice followed her. Amora. She paused. Thank you. For giving me a chance I don't deserve. She looked back at him, at the hope and fear warring in his eyes, at the vulnerability he had never shown anyone else. Don't make me regret it. She walked out into the night. And for the first time in years, she felt something that wasn't pain. She felt possibility. 6 months later. They had gone on 23 dates. Each one carefully planned. Each one ending with a polite goodbye at her door. No kisses, no touching, no assumptions. Tae-hyun had been patient beyond anything Amora would have believed possible. He had answered every question she asked. Shared every secret she requested. Opened his books, his records, his entire empire to her scrutiny. And slowly, so slowly, she had begun to trust again. On their 24th date, Amora reached across the table and took his hand. He froze. They were at a small Italian restaurant in The Hague. She had returned to her work, and he had flown to visit her every other week. His hand trembled beneath hers. Amora. Sure. She interlaced their fingers. His eyes were wet. I don't deserve this. Maybe not. But I'm choosing to give it anyway. She squeezed his hand. I'm choosing you. Flawed, complicated, infuriating you. I'll spend the rest of my life making you happy. I'm going to hold you to that. The kiss came on date 27. They were walking along a canal at sunset, the Dutch sky painted orange and pink, when she stopped and turned to face him. I'm going to kiss you now, she said. Should you ask first? Should I? His eyes darkened. Yes. Then I'm asking. May I? He stepped closer. Yes. She kissed him. And the world, which had been broken for so long, began to mend. But peace was fragile. And the past was not finished with them yet. 3 months after their first kiss, Amora received a letter. Not from Tae-hyun, From her father. My daughter. I know I have failed you. I know my silence has been a cruelty. But I must see you. There are things you need to know, things I should have told you years ago. Please come home. Your father. Nigeria. Amora hadn't been home in 5 years. She had fled her father's disapproval, built a life across continents, buried the longing for home beneath work and duty. But the longing had never died. I'm coming with you, Tae-hyun said when she told him. That's not a good idea. I don't care. My father hates you. I know. But I'm not letting you face this alone. He took her hand. Whatever he tells you, whatever happens, we face it together. That's what this is now. Amora looked at him, this man who had been her enemy and her lover, her betrayer and her protector. Together, she agreed. Lagos was exactly as she remembered. Hot. Chaotic. Achingly familiar. They drove through traffic that would have made any Solite despair, past markets overflowing with color and sound, into the quiet wealth of Ikoyi where her family's compound waited. Her father met them at the gate. Chief Okoye was older than she remembered. Smaller somehow, diminished by the years and the weight of his own choices. Amora. His voice cracked on her name. Papa. They stood 3 feet apart, a distance that felt like miles. Then he opened his arms. And she fell into them. Later, in his study, with Tae-hyun waiting outside, her father told her everything. About the Kang family's threats. About the choice he had faced, watch his empire destroyed, or watch his daughter become a pawn. I chose to let you be happy, he said quietly. Even if that happiness was built on lies. I told myself that if he loved you, truly loved you, the origins wouldn't matter. And when you disowned me. He closed his eyes. I was angry. Not at you, at myself. At my own powerlessness. I said things I will regret until my dying day. I didn't mean them. I never stopped loving you. Amora wept. For the first time in years, she wept without restraint. Her father held her, murmuring Igbo endearments from her childhood, and the broken pieces began to find their places. Tae-hyun entered the study an hour later. At Chief Okoye's invitation. The 2 men faced each other, the Korean billionaire and the Nigerian patriarch. Both powerful. Both protective. Both ultimately humbled by their love for the same woman. You hurt my daughter, Chief Okoye said flatly. Yes. You manipulated my family. Yes. You have caused more pain than you can possibly understand. I know. Silence. Then, you also protected her. When your own father demanded her sacrifice, you refused. Tae-hyun's jaw tightened. I would burn the world for her. I believe you would. Chief Okoye stuttered him. Which is the only reason I'm not having you removed from my home. I understand. No. You don't. The older man stepped closer. You understand power. Control. Strategy. What you don't understand, yet, is that loving an Okoye woman means accepting that you will never fully possess her. We raise our daughters to bow to no one. Not even the men they love. I'm learning that. Good. Chief Okoye extended his hand. Then perhaps there is hope for you after all. Tae-hyun took it. Something shifted in the room. Not quite forgiveness. But the beginning of acceptance. They stayed in Lagos for 2 weeks. 2 weeks of healing old wounds. Of bridging divided families. Of building new foundations on the ruins of old deceptions. But the outside world did not pause for their reconciliation. On their final night in Nigeria, Amora's phone rang. Park Minute-jun's voice was tight with fear. Mrs. Kang, Amora, you need to return to Seoul immediately. What's wrong? It's Seo-yun. She didn't leave. She's been in hiding, gathering evidence, and she's found allies. Powerful ones. What kind of allies? The people Tae-hyun's father destroyed. The families who lost everything to the Kang Empire. They've formed a coalition, and they are planning to strike. Board takeover. Criminal charges. Complete annihilation. Amora's blood ran cold. When? Tomorrow. The emergency board meeting is set for 10 a.m. If Tae-hyun isn't there, we'll be there. She hung up. Turned to find Tae-hyun already watching her. I heard, he said quietly. We need to go. I know. He took her hand. Together. Together. The Kang Industries boardroom was a battlefield. 23 board members. Hostile shareholders. Lawyers armed with decades of accumulated grievances. And at the center of it all, Yoon Seo-yeon, resurrected and ruthless. You thought you could escape your family's sins, she said to Tae-hyun as he entered. But the past always returns. Always demands payment. This has nothing to do with me. This is about your wounded pride. This is about justice. She gestured at the assembled enemies. Every person in this room lost something to your father. Children lost parents. Families lost fortunes. Lives were destroyed to build your empire. My father's crimes are not mine. But you benefited from them. You inherited everything he stole. Tae-hyun's jaw tightened. The dragon tattoo on his neck stood stark against his pale skin. Then what do you want? Everything. The company. The wealth. Your complete surrender. Silence fell over the room. Tae-hyun looked at Amora. She stood beside him, not behind, not separate, but at his side. Her face was calm. Her eyes were fierce. She gave him the smallest nod. No, he said. The room erupted. You don't have a choice. I always have a choice. Tae-hyun's voice cut through the chaos. And I choose to fight. Not to protect my wealth or my power, those mean nothing to me anymore. But to protect the people who depend on this company. The employees. The communities. The thousands of lives that would be destroyed if I surrendered to your revenge. He stepped forward. You want to hold me accountable for my father's sins? Fine. I'll open every record. Allow every investigation. Face whatever consequences are found. But I will not hand this company to people whose only goal is destruction. Seo-yeon laughed. You don't have the support. The board is against you. The shareholders are against you. You're alone. Am I? The door opened. Chief Okoye entered. Behind him, representatives from 3 African nations. Industrial leaders. Political allies. A coalition of power that made even the hostile board members pause. My daughter's husband may have enemies, Chief Okoye said calmly. But he also has family. And the Okoyes protect their own. He took his place beside Tae-hyun and Amora. I believe we have a vote to conduct. The battle lasted 4 hours. Votes were cast. Proxies were challenged. Legal maneuvers were deployed and countered. In the end, Tae-hyun retained control by a margin of 3%. Seo-yeon was escorted out by security, her coalition shattered, her final play destroyed. But she paused at the door. Looked back at Amora. You won this battle. But the war never ends. There will always be someone who remembers. Someone who wants revenge. Amora met her eyes. Then I'll be ready. Seo-yeon left. She would not be seen in Seoul again. 1 year later. The ceremony was small. Just family. Just friends. Just the people who mattered. They married again on the grounds of Gyeongbokgung Palace, special permission granted for the man who had just donated $200 million to Korean cultural preservation. Amora wore white silk and traditional coral beads, a fusion of her heritage and her chosen home. Tae-hyun wore black, the dragon tattoo visible above his collar. But this time, there were also new tattoos. On his wrist, Amora's name in Igbo script. On his chest, above his heart, the words home in both Korean and English. I, Kang Tae-hyun, take you, Amora Okoye, to be my wife. Not as a strategy. Not as a possession. But as my partner, my equal, my home. I promise to love you honestly. To protect you fiercely. To choose you every day for the rest of my life. I, Amora Okoye, take you, Kang Tae-hyun, to be my husband. Not because you're powerful. Not because you changed. But because I have seen the man beneath the mask, and I love him, flaws and all. I promise to challenge you. To hold you accountable. To stand beside you in every battle, for the rest of my life. They kissed as the sun set over Seoul. And for the first time in their complicated history, there were no lies between them. Only love. The Kang compound was filled with sound. A child's laughter echoed through the gardens. Little Obiora, aged 2, named for Amora's late mother. He had his father's sharp features and his mother's warm eyes, and he was currently being chased by his aunt Ngozi while his grandfather Chief Okoye pretended to nap in a deck chair. Amora watched from the terrace, her hand resting on the swell of her stomach. Another child on the way. Another miracle neither of them had expected. Taehyun appeared beside her, sliding his arms around her from behind. "You should be resting," he murmured against her hair. "I should be living. There's a difference." He smiled, a real smile, unguarded and free. Such smiles came easier now. The ice had melted. The masks had fallen. In their place was a man who still commanded empires but came home every night for dinner with his family. "I love you," he said. "I know. You're supposed to say it back." "Am I?" She turned in his arms, facing him. "I thought I showed it by staying. By building this life with you. By carrying your children. Words matter too. Then let me use them properly." She touched his face, traced the line of his jaw, the dragon tattoo on his neck. "I love you, Kang Taehyun. Not despite what we've been through, but because of it. Every scar made us stronger. Every storm made us more certain." He kissed her. Below, Obiora shrieked with delight as Ngozi caught him. Chief Okoye opened one eye and smiled. And Amora, standing in the arms of the man who had once been her enemy and was now her everything, felt the last broken piece of her heart finally settle into place. Sometimes love begins with lies. Sometimes it survives betrayal. Sometimes the most dangerous silence is the one that holds back a truth too powerful to speak. But sometimes, if you're brave enough, patient enough, willing to burn everything down and rebuild from ashes, sometimes love wins. Thank you for joining this journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. Sometimes the greatest love stories are not the ones that begin perfectly, but the ones that fight through darkness to find light. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps bring more stories of love, power, and resilience to life. Until next time, remember, silence is not always weakness. Sometimes it's the warning before the storm.